A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I greet you, my brothers and sisters, with the noble and universal greeting of peace, the greeting that has been used by the Prophet and messengers of our universal Creator, Almighty Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am very pleased to be alive and be strengthened in my iman. The Quran says Allah brings peace and tranquility upon the believer and strengthens them in iman, and I'm very happy to report that this is my experience, and I'm very grateful to share with you my experience. And coming from having worked with people in counseling for 25 years or so plus, and going through my own challenges in life, this is basically a professional opinion that I'm giving you as an academic who has undergraduate degrees in science and postgraduate degrees in psychology. The solution to humanity's suffering is basically the message of the Quran and that which has been shared by the prophets and messengers. And I'm about to continue with our movement from being a non-believer, an unbeliever, a hypocrite, how we all are there until guidance comes to us. We all are this caterpillar, so to speak, and we can move into a cocoon. And when we move into the cocoon, we can emerge from the cocoon on the other side as a butterfly. So we can live without faith, and which everybody does. We're all in the darkness. Even the Prophet was said, we found you in darkness and we guided you to the light. You were lost. Allah says to the Prophet in the Quran, and you were lost and we guided you. And so we are all lost. After Adam and Eve and their experience with Satan, going into insecurity, human beings have lived in a state of disconnection from their Creator, in a state of spiritual underdevelopment, living at a lowly experience of being and relating and experiencing. And this is what we've been talking about. If you want to know more about that, check out the YouTube channel, Almighty Allah, the Believer's Refuge, and Allah, the Believer's Refuge on Spotify, and so on and so forth. Podcasts are moving forward. So we've been talking about and focusing on human beings prior to guidance coming to them. They are lost. And when guidance comes, and those who receive the guidance will no longer be lost. And the guidance is a awareness. The guidance guides you to awareness and an expansion of awareness, expansion of experiencing. And the thing is, human beings are insecure because they are unaware. When you become aware, when a person becomes aware, they will experience security. When people become aware of truth, of haqq, when people become aware of truth, they go beyond superstition, they go beyond ignorance, they go beyond arrogance. You get what I mean? So all three types of people, which we all are until guidance comes to us, and those who receive guidance will no longer be in these three types, because with the guidance we move into an expanded awareness, we become God conscious or Allah aware, and we then live as a believer. We have a different experience of life. So the denier, kuffar, the associator, the mushrik, and the munafiq, the hypocrite, the munafiq, all three are essentially the same. All three are hearts that are diseased. They are people in whose hearts there's a disease, and their ways are made fair-seeming to them, all of us. Before guidance comes to us, we think we know, and we think we're doing very well. But we're not really living on the path. Which path? The straight path, the ascending path, the path of human excellence. The path upon whom the favors of God are. You understand? The people who are on the path, they experience the favors of God. Why is that? Because prior to receiving guidance and being on the path, a person is in these three lower states. You get what I mean? A person is in a denial state. So when you're in a denial state, when you're unaware of our Creator, you cannot have a relationship with your Creator when you're unaware of your Creator. And you cannot experience the security that comes from being aware of your Creator. When you start presencing our universal Creator, Almighty Allah, when you become aware of Allah, you become aware that Allah is aware of you. You understand? You start responding to Allah's relating to you. When you really become aware of Allah, you experience Allah as relating to you. And you have a relationship with Allah. You actually have a relationship with Allah. And that's what the butterfly is. The butterfly is the higher version of humanity. The higher version of you and me. The version of you and me that is actually aware and experiencing Allah consciousness. But if we say we can't see God, there's no God, and we deny God, then we are keeping ourselves in a state of spiritual abandonment. You get what I mean? All three of these states, the denier, the associated, the hypocrite, all three experience an abandonment in life. They experience this feeling of feeling needy and alone and scared and threatened. They experience what I call an existential abandonment. When you live unaware of God, you feel this existential abandonment in life. You feel disconnected. You look around you, you don't feel fulfilled. Nothing in the world fulfills you. You turn to people to connect with them. You want somebody to care for you. You connect with other people, trying to take care of other people. You turn to people and you unhealthily bond with people. Before you actually bond with people, we have to have a bond with Allah. You get what I mean? When you are a believer, when Iman has entered into your heart. Remember, don't say you're a believer, even though you said La ilaha illallah. You are submissive in religion, but Iman has not entered into your heart. A believer is one into whose heart Iman has entered. A believer is who is one who, when they remember Allah, their heart experiences assurance. A believer is beyond these denying states and these associating states and these Hippocratic states. You know what I mean? Saying you believe but not really believing. You think you're lying to Allah, but you're only lying to yourself. In your heart is a disease, and that disease is expanded. You know what I mean? So whether you're a denier, an associate, or a hypocrite, you don't have a relationship with God. And a believer, her first relationship is with Almighty Allah. A believer, the characteristic of a believer is that before they turn to people to take care of them, or they turn to people to take care of other people, or they think they can take care of themselves, nobody must take care of them, they can take care of themselves. Before these this is the state before we submit, before we get into the cocoon, the spiritual cocoon. When guidance comes to us, we can step into the cocoon. And when you step into the cocoon, there's a transformation that takes place. Allah purifies your heart, cleanses you. There's a cleansing process that takes place. And then you emerge on the other side with a heart that is whole and healed. And you are moving towards a greater wholeness and healing as a believer. So all human beings, prior to the guidance, they remain denying God, associating partners with God, and they say they believe in God, but they don't really believe in God. They don't really have a relationship with God. And this is why in many verses of the Quran, you'll hear that if you remember God, God will remember you. If you fail to remember God, God doesn't remember you. That you won't be aware that God is remembering you if you fail to remember God. You get what I mean? It says that you must return. Those who return while they are alive, you return to God. Because after Adam and Eve with Satan, humanity went into a forgetfulness. It's like we act like there's no God. We don't know who we are, where we are, what is going on. We don't know the power of God. We don't know the greatness of God. We don't know the graciousness of God. We're not really connected with God. You see, so the denier is that person who doesn't have a relationship with God, because they deny that there is a God. The associator is that person who says there is a God, but the God that they're talking about is an idea in their mind. They don't really refer to the one power, the universal one power, unique and supreme. They are not into Tawheed, into the oneness of God, the onlyness of God, the sufficiency of God. They're not really aware. They have ideas of God, which are erroneous ideas of God. They think that something in the created world is God, the created world is God. They have ideas in their fantasy world of something being God. They make up things. Even the people of Moses took their gold jewelry and fashioned it into a calf, a golden calf, and they started worshipping it, human beings. You know what I mean? This is what Satan, from insecurity, this is what Satan tells people. Do this, you'll feel better. Their ways are made fair seeming to them, the Quran says. You get them? They think they're doing something good. They think that this is worshipping God. But they're not really worshipping God, because how can you worship God when you're not aware of God? They're not really aware. They don't have Tawheed. They don't know the onlyness, the oneness of God. They don't know the nature of God, and they are still deeply identified with their mind. So whether you're a denier, you are worshipping Satan because you haven't learned to worship God. Really, actually, be aware of God and presence God. You haven't done that. You don't know what that is. And so, a denier and an associator, they both don't have a relationship with God. And the denier denies God, and the associator takes God other than God, and still doesn't have a relationship with God. And so the hypocrite might be the one giving you the right words. I believe in Allah, I said my kalima, you know what I mean, all that kind of thing. I'm reading my Quran, I stand in prayer. What does the Quran say? It says, among them there are those who say they believe in Allah and the last day, but they don't believe in Allah. They only lie to Allah, thinking, they think they lie to Allah, but they only lie to themselves. In their hearts is a disease. They are astray, and Allah leaves them to stray. This disease in their heart is expanded, the Quran tells us. Their ways are made fair seeming to them. So they are the third category of people who are not aware of Allah and don't have a relationship with Allah, and they have not submitted, and they're not experiencing themselves as believers. They might have beliefs, but they are not believers. They might have seemingly the correct beliefs, ideas, but it's still an idea. It's like the mushrik, the associator, has ideas about God. And so the munafiq, the hypocrite, has beliefs that may be the correct beliefs, but they're not believers. They might tell you there's only one God. They might tell you they believe in, Allah. They might tell you they follow the Prophet and, his guidance. They might tell you the Quran is the revelation. They might tell you Islam is, their way. But really they're not aware of Allah. Their hearts is a disease. They're no different from the others. A hypocrite is a modified associator. A hypocrite is a modified version of a munafiq. Sorry, a munafiq is a hypocrite, is a modified version of a associator, a mushrik, a polytheist. They are a modified version. Interestingly enough, both Ibrahim alayhi salam, one of the main characters in truth teaching, Ibrahim alayhi salam, Abraham, and the Prophet Muhammad as well, peace be upon them both, they both asked, they made dua that they be protected from shirk. These major personalities, Abraham and the Prophet Muhammad, they were interested They were committed to remaining in Tawheed, in the oneness, Ikhad. I mean, if you know about Moses and Jesus, they said Ikhad. The Prophet Muhammad said Ahad. It's the same thing. And they were conscious that they must not remain or continue in ways of shirk, even though they had been guided into truth. You understand? So somebody might say they are a Muslim, but they don't know Allah and they're not experiencing Allah consciousness. They're not into Tawheed. They're not into the oneness as an awareness and experiencing and an expression. They're not experiencing Iman in their heart, basically. They have ideas. They might read the Quran, but they read it in a language they don't understand. They don't glean. They don't get the benefit of the teaching of the Quran. They're not learning and developing. You get what I mean? And they might say they follow the Prophet, but it's limited to like how the Prophet groomed himself. I got a beard, so I'm following the Prophet. You get what I mean? Instead of saying the Prophet was an honorable human being and I'm following the Prophet, the Prophet's conduct, they're interested in. And emulating the conduct, they're interested in appearances, but not in the experiences of being. Get what I mean? So there are people who are modified polytheists or associators. They're modified. They might look and sound like they are talking truth, but they are not in any way real believers. And I was reading a verse of the Quran this week, and it said, it puts the hypocrites and the associators in the same category. You get what I mean? Somebody might think, but I'm not as bad as those people, because those people make up gods in their mind. You know what I mean? Or they make up gods among created things. They turn to something in the creation or something that's a creation in their own mind. They turn to, I'm not that bad. I read the Quran. The Prophet said, the Quran says, woe to those who stand in prayer but whose hearts lack the smallest of kindnesses. You know what I mean? So hypocrites will stand in prayer, but their hearts lack the smallest of kindnesses, and so there'll be somebody who will tell us, but I said the kalima. I said I believe in Allah. I said I read the Quran. I follow the Prophet's behavior, or not really behavior, but appearance. I have my beard, and I'm acting like the Prophet in a sense of the way I groom myself, and I stand in prayer, but in their hearts is a disease. They are hypocrites. You get what I mean? They're not really interested in Allah and submitting before Allah. They're not really interested in Iman. They might be all out for Islam, as we've heard. People are, the woman who told us that her husband is learned in deen, he might be all about Islamic knowledge, but he's got no Iman. He's got no knowledge of Iman. You get what I mean? Hypocrites are like that. They're not into submission before Allah. They don't have a relationship with Allah. In their hearts is a disease. That's why that man, the woman was saying, many Fridays ago, the woman was saying that all types of abuse, not only did he lack the smallest of kindnesses, but he seemed to have the greatest of cruelty. Allah only knows according to what this woman was saying to us. You get what I mean? So they are not really connected with Allah. They don't really be like the Prophet, because their hearts are full of cruelty, and all. The Prophet wasn't like that. He was an amazing human being, a leader. He was loving and kind, and all that sort of thing, and honorable. And they might say they read the Quran, but they're not gleaning anything. And you hear me talking about people who are like, into religious expertise. I told you some of us come from the Indo-Pak subcontinent, and we've got a history there, and so we have a history of guru worship and pandit worship and all that sort of thing, going to the pandit, and so when Islam came there, we just modified our Hinduism. You understand? A lot of Indians are modified Hindus that became Muslims, in that they still have the ways of mushrik, of association. You get what I mean? I'm not saying all. I'm saying those that we hear described and so on and so forth. There's this, Islam, when it came to India, became contaminated as far as I'm concerned by the guru system. And that's why you have Maulana Guru and Mufti Pandit focusing only on religious expertise. We'll tell you what's right, what to read, when to read it. But Islam, as a way of connecting to Allah, as a way of being honorable, as a way of living, in this world through death and beyond, of remembering Allah and actually awakening from the satanic trance, they don't talk about that. This is what happened. This is where it is. Anyway, now, I explained to us at the end of last Friday's lecture that first you must see where you are. You must speak the truth about where you are. If you are not aware of Allah, you could be denying Allah, you could be having gods other than Allah, or you might be a hypocrite saying you believe in Allah and doing all the rituals that Maulana Guru and Mufti Pandit said you must do, but you're not really aware of Allah. You haven't really submitted. You get what I mean? There's so much that is to be said about a believer. You see, a believer presences Allah and becomes aware of the presence of Allah. A believer praises Allah and experiences Allah hearing them. A believer puts their trust in Allah and experiences Allah responding to them. A believer is thankful to Allah and gets more. The Quran says that if you are thankful, you'll get more. A believer is one who invokes the forgiveness of Allah and experiences being protected by Allah, who experiences assurance with Allah, who experiences reassurance with Allah. A believer feels assured and reassured with Allah. A believer, in times of challenge and difficulty, they apply themselves with patience. The Quran says Allah is with those who are patient. You get what I mean? And when you experience being patient, you experience Allah changing your situations, that Allah finds a way from sources unknown, ways unexpected. You get what I mean? And when you invoke Allah's good in this world and the world beyond, then you experience it. What I'm getting at here is a very big difference between modified mushrikism, you know what I mean? Modified association, that is hypocrisy, to real belief. When somebody who remembers Allah, is aware of Allah, and they remember Allah, in their hearts experience assurance. You see, if you are a real believer, here is what I'm telling you, when you will feel assured, and you will feel reassured, and you will feel that your good in this world and the world beyond that is there for you is ensured. This is the security. That's why the word believer, I'm using this in an analogy as a butterfly. The human being that is no longer worshipping Satan, the human being that is no longer superstitious, ignorant and arrogant, the human being that has actually become aware of Allah, they are a different human being. The things that I say are not against anybody. I'm not needing to run anybody down or criticize them. The Quran says, let them believe if they want to believe, let them disbelieve if they want to disbelieve. You get what I mean? It's between Allah and them. It's got nothing to do with me. I don't need to run anybody down and say I'm better than anybody else. I'm just grateful. Guidance came to me and I received it, and I am among those who submit. I have submitted. I am no longer insecure. I am secure. I'm a believer that I know Allah is enough for me. I have Allah and He is enough for me. I experience Allah as being enough for me. The ultimate resource, absolutely valuable. Nothing. I'm not freaked out about anybody or anything. I am aware of, I'm humble before my Creator. Every day I experience humility. You get what I mean? I'm thankful that I'm aware of Allah and Allah's role in my life. I'm aware of Allah's relating to me and I'm responding. I'm just showing you the difference between a hypocrite. They might fill up the mosque on a Friday, and they might even speak in the mosque on the Friday. And the Quran says there'll come a time, not the Quran, Islamic teaching, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, there'll come a time when the people in your own mosque will lead you astray. Hadith says that there'll come a time when mosques will be bigger and bigger all over the world, but there'll be no people with faith in those mosques. I believe the time has come. We are living in this time. You can't find people with Iman. And it is said that when the time of the Dajjal comes, only the true believers will see kufr on his head. Only true believers will recognize kufr. If you're not a true believer, you will never recognize kufr. What is kufr? It's the denial of Allah. It's the concealing of the truth. I can see that because I was that. I know when I was kufr, mushrik and hypocrite. So I can see that in me. And I can see that in others. Because I'm aware beyond who I've been and how I've lived. You get what I mean? So I'm telling you that as a believer, the feeling space that you are in is secure. You don't freak out. You trust in Allah. And you operate with Allah with spiritual practices. You have a relationship with Allah and you feel assured. And you have a relationship with Allah that you feel reassured. And you know Allah, and you know that Allah does for us what nobody can do for us and we can't do for us. You understand, you see the role of Allah in our lives. You get what I mean? You're humble before Allah as a believer. You're not ignorant, arrogant, superstitious. You're actually humble before Allah. That's why sometimes you see Maulana Guru and Mufti Pandit, they are so arrogant. The Prophet wasn't like that. He said, I don't have any knowledge. The Prophet was humble. When they asked him things, he says, I'm a man like you. What can I know? I have no knowledge. But when you hear the Guru and the Pandit, oh, they know. They are, because their Pandits teachers told them and their Guru teachers told them, they know. There's no humility. They argue with each other, fight with each other on religious expertise. They into their own sectarianism. They into their own schools. They follow not, last Friday I posted a message that it was like be loyal to Allah and be loyal to the Prophet. Be loyal to Allah and be loyal to the Prophet. It doesn't say be loyal to the Guru and be loyal to the Pandit. You understand what I'm saying to you? It says be loyal to Allah and be loyal to the Prophet. I am loyal to Allah and loyal to the Prophet. I'm not loyal to a guru and I'm not loyal to a pandit. Especially people who are arrogant, who don't humble themselves, who think they know. Allah alone only knows. No human being knows. I don't turn to any human being, I turn to Allah. Human beings are created. Allah is the uncreated. The Quran guides me to turn to Allah. I will follow the guidance of the Quran that I will turn to Allah. The Quran says if you believe in Allah, you will guide your heart. It doesn't say if you believe in a human being, the human being will guide your heart. We are told in the Quran that the Prophet was not a manager of people. He was a messenger, not a manager. Nobody's here to, this whole Pandit Guru system is about they must tell us. We defer responsibility to them. And they must tell, we'll be good little children and they'll be good parents and will play this game, follower of the Guru and the Pandit. I'm not into that. I submit. When you are unaware, when Satan is your friend, when you worship Satan, you do these things. That's why hypocrisy is a modified version of shirk. Because the hypocrites say they believe in Allah and the last day, but they're not loyal to Allah. And they're not loyal to the Prophet. They're loyal to the Guru and the Pandit. Hypocrisy. You see, the Quran says, let us not take from among ourselves lords and patrons. Let's not create any priesthood. There's no priesthood in Islam. There was never any priesthood at the time of the Prophet, nor even after the Prophet. Priesthood in Islam is after India. Our contribution, the Indian contribution to Islam, bringing priesthood into Islam. The Indians contributed many things, but I think one of the poorest things we've done, but we thought we were doing something great, is priesthood. Anyway, guidance has come to us, and it says to us that you and I, while we are here, there is for us to actually show up and shine. I don't know how else to say it. There's for us to wake up and live. You know what I mean? That there's a path of Iman, Amal, a life tayyibun, and a blissful return. There is guidance to humanity. Allah is telling us that when you're living here, there is a purpose. There is a purpose. Our purpose is to submit before Allah. Our purpose is to have a relationship with Allah. Not with anybody, not the Guru, not the Pandit. our relationship is first with Allah, with our Creator, that we can actually have a relationship with Allah. Many of these gurus and pandits don't want you to have a relationship with Allah. They don't tell you about Allah. They tell you about them in their schools of thought. But the Quran tells you about Allah, and the Quran guides you. Allah is with us and for us, interested in us, attentive to us. He's telling us while we are here, there is a challenge. There is good news. The Prophet was brought, and other prophets, and the Quran brings good news, glad tidings. That we can live with higher potentials and possibilities, that the way we live when we're insecure is not really befitting human beings. Allah created us, gave us status and standing. Allah created us to experience comfort and convenience, satisfaction. Allah created us to be the best of creation. We are amazing creation. Allah created us. Allah created us, and He breathed His Spirit into us, the Quran tells us. We human beings can experience being godly. Get what I mean? Allah is peace. We can experience being peaceful. Allah is patient. We can experience being patient. Allah is loving. We can experience being loving. Allah is compassionate. We can experience being compassionate. Allah is giving and forgiving and favoring. We can experience being, giving, forgiving and favoring. Allah has given us that. I mean, if you could only see. You see, I think it's one hadith that says to know yourself is to know Allah. There's a hadith that says that. To know yourself is to know. I have come to see. I'm among the grateful. You understand? When you're a believer, you can see, you're a valuer, you appreciate. The Quran says Satan stands on the path and renders the people ungrateful. Renders the people ungrateful. If you are not aware of what I'm telling you, if you're not feeling grateful, if you're not feeling appreciative, it's because Satan stands in your way. And you haven't overcome that. This is why, this is the path of the believer's refuge. This is refuge with Allah. Allah has guided us to claim refuge with Him. It's A'udhu Billah. It's not A'udhu Maulana, A'udhu Pandit, A'udhu Guru. It's A'udhu, not Hazrat, not A'udhu Mufti, A'udhu Billah. Allah guides us to turn to Him. This surprises people because they're so deep, lost in this travesty. When truth has been distorted in the way that it is, this is what you call a travesty. Anyway, I was telling you, if you're a believer, you'll experience being presenced by Allah as you presence Allah. When you become aware of Allah, you'll become aware that Allah is aware of you. And when you praise Allah, when you become aware of Allah, you'll praise Allah. When you praise Allah, you'll become aware that Allah hears you. Allah is with you and for you. And you will trust in Allah. When you trust in Allah, when you experience trusting in Allah, you will experience Allah responding to you in your world. And when you are grateful, you will experience Allah giving you more of what you have that you're grateful for, and more of what there is for you to have. And when you invoke Allah's forgiveness, His protection, we never despair. Never despair. Never despair. What good news is that? Never despair. The believers never despair, for Allah is merciful and compassionate. We never despair the mercy of Allah. It is a disbelieving people that despair the mercy of Allah. Quran tells us that. I was telling you about patience. Where are you learning this? Are you learning this anywhere? Is Maulana Guru and Mufti Pandit telling you about all these things? How to practice patience? The Quran says, if you're patient, Allah is with you. Allah is with those who are patient. Inna Allah masabirin. That practice patience with an excellent patience. Have you ever heard that taught in madrasa? How to be patient. What is patience? How to apply yourself in patience. Have you ever learned these things? And how to make dua. People think making dua is just desperately, turning to Allah. That's not dua. That's not dua. People don't know how to invoke Allah, His good in this world and the world beyond. Allah says, if you turn to me, I will surely respond. Why are the people's du'as not getting answered? Why? Because it's not real du'as. The du'as of those who have no faith are vain du'as, the Quran says. The prayers of those who have no faith is vain prayers. Those that are denying God, they won't pray. You see, those that deny God, they obviously won't invoke or pray. And those who are associating don't have faith. And the hypocrites don't have faith either. So, there is for us to operate in a way that I would call godfully. In godfulness, I made up this word, it's where you know that Allah, it's a friendship with Allah, it's an intimacy with Allah, it's getting closer to Allah, it's drawing closer to Allah. I told us last week that when you take one step towards Allah, Allah takes 10 towards you. Effectively, every day, if I take one, I'm 11 steps closer to Allah. Now I understand Allah has no legs, this is a metaphor. You understand? Allah doesn't need legs, Allah is beyond form. Allah is the creator of form. Allah is a unique, intelligent power, benevolent power, that we can be aware of and experience security with when we become aware of Allah. So when we become aware of Allah, we become aware that what Allah does for us, nobody can do. We have a friendship with Allah, we draw closer to Allah, we take one step towards Allah. Every day I take a step towards Allah. Every day effectively I'm getting closer to Allah. This is what a believer is. A believer is constantly drawing closer to Allah. They're taking steps every day. And Allah is taking 10 times those steps. I was thinking to myself that I said, I must say to you, that imagine if Allah said, you take one step towards me, I'll take 10 steps away from you. No, Allah doesn't do that. And nor does Allah say, you take one step towards me, I'll just stay here. See? Allah doesn't say, okay, you take one step towards me, oh man, I have to take one step towards you. Allah says, you take one step towards me, I take 10 steps towards you. Allah is the championer of humanity. Allah is the cherisher of humanity. Allah believes in us. Allah is guiding us with expectation. Allah extends to us His guidance. You get what I mean? But who will receive the guidance? Not the denier, not the associator, not the hypocrite. The person who received the guidance is the person who wants Iman, Amal and a life-day ibun. This is what we are called to. We're called to Iman, actual faith in Allah. We're called to honorable living, to live at a higher level than we're currently living. We're called to a life-day ibun, a natural life in this world and a blissful return. We are called to living in a way of peace. Allah wants ease for us, the Quran says. We are called to live at a higher level of humanity, beyond these 3 levels. We are called to live as outstanding human beings, empowered adults, living exceptional lives in this world through our death and beyond. Allah tells us this is good for us in this world, and this is good for us in the world beyond. Allah is supporting us to get closer to Him. Allah is supporting us to get into the path. Allah is telling us Satan is a liar, is a deceiver. Allah says, draw closer to me, Satan is an enemy. So who will say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, with confidence? Who will do that? So I found there's 3 types of people. Like I said, there's 3 types of spiritual identities. That is unbelieving, and then there's the believer, the 4th. There are people who want to remain the same. They want to remain the same. They want to remain insecure. They are hell-bent on their denial. They want to continue to remain deniers. You talk to them about truth. No, we already know there's no God. There are people who want to remain mushrik. Oh, don't tell us we got our gods. We believe a man is God. We believe a thing is God. We believe some image is God. Some idol is God. They want to continue in the ways of their forefathers. You get what I mean? There are people who are hypocrites. They say they are Muslims, but they're not. And they want to continue in these ways. They are hell-bent. They are arguing for insecurity. They want to continue in a way that is no Iman, Amal, and a life-day ibun. They don't want that. They don't want to be on the path where when you step on that path, Allah draws closer to you. When you step on that path, Allah's blessings come to you. They don't want to relinquish superstition, ignorance and arrogance. They don't want to. They don't want to admit we are ignorant, superstitious, arrogant. They don't want to admit that. They don't want to actually humble themselves. They don't actually want to submit. They don't want to have a relationship with Allah, basically. They don't want to believe in Allah. They don't want to draw closer to Allah. They either want to say there's no God. They either want to believe in gods that are not God. They either want to be hypocrites doing their own thing, but thinking they believe, but they don't believe, the Quran tells us. So some of us will begin to speak the truth to us, not everybody, about ourselves. See, who will speak the truth about ourselves? Those who are hell-bent and they want to continue in their ways and they will argue and fight. Like if I share this knowledge with people and they are against me and they get angry with me and they get aggressive, then we know that these are the people that are hell-bent. They are championers of ignorance, superstition and arrogance. It's got nothing to do with me, it's got nothing to do with you, it's got to do with them and Allah. They are welcome. Whatever people think and whatever people do has got nothing to do with me. It's what I think and what I do that matters. However people relate to Allah got nothing to do with me. It's how I relate to Allah that matters to me. I have Allah and that's all that matters. People don't like me, people want to say things about me, go ahead and say it. I won't be the first for bad things to be said about who are people guiding people. You know what I mean? Teaching people and so on. I won't be the first. So I have no fear of the hypocrites. I'm assertive with the ignorant. I greet them with peace. The Quran says when you come across the ignorant people, greet them with peace. I choose peace with them. I don't want to fight with them. I don't want to argue with them. But I'm telling you, there are those who will react very violently against what I'm saying. That's because they are determined to remain superstitious, ignorant and arrogant. They don't want to. The truth is made, the Quran says truth is self-evident. Truth is self-evident. Truth needs no qualification. You get what I mean? What I'm saying, those of you who got eyes to see, ears to hear, hearts to behold, those of you who are interested in truth, you will hear the truth. But those of you, people who are like, no, what does he know, who is he, and whatever, my guru told me this, those who want to continue in the guru worship and pandit worship, they can carry on. It's got nothing to do with me. It's got to do with them and God. You get what I mean? So there are those who are hell-bent, and they will champion their ignorance, superstition and arrogance. They'll champion it. And there are those, and these people will always end up desperate. When you turn away from Allah, and Allah, the resource that Allah is, when you deny Allah, and you do not operate with Allah to invoke His good, because there's only certain things only Allah can do, right, for you and for me. Other things He allows us to do for ourselves. We can plant seeds and watch them grow. We can harvest fruit. That Allah has given us the ability to do and we can do. But certain things Allah can only do. He spins the earth on the axis. Allah is the one who gave us, intellect and affect. And there's only certain things Allah can do. Allah can protect us, Allah can progress us, and Allah can prosper us. If you don't have a relationship with Allah, you won't experience that assurance and that reassurance, and you won't have Allah protect you. You won't have Allah progress you. You won't have Allah prosper you. And so, if you are hell-bent, it ends up very badly. In this world, through your death and beyond, you end up feeling very desperate. Those who end up feeling desperate in life is because they are insistent on remaining ignorant, superstitious and arrogant. Remember, when you get on the path, Allah's favors come upon you. The path upon whom your favors are. Why? Because we're no longer arrogant. We're no longer superstitious. We're no longer arrogant. We're aware of truth. We're aware of where we are. We're aware of Allah as the authority. We're aware of how to relate to Allah as we respond to Allah. You get what I mean? We'll talk more about this, inshallah, next Friday. Inshallah. But the point that I'm making here is there are people who are insistent on remaining the same, and they'll argue and they'll become aggressive. You get what I mean? And there are other people who won't become aggressive, but they'll become defensive. They too don't want to learn, grow and develop. They don't want to say all human beings are spiritually underdeveloped, in our hearts is a disease, but it is for us to bring to Allah a purified heart. The most important thing the Quran tells us on the day of accountability is not how many children we had, our children and our families, nor how much money we made in our businesses and so on and so forth. It's those who bring to Allah a purified heart. It doesn't say those who are obedient to Maulana Guru. It says be loyal to Allah and be loyal to the Prophet and bring to Allah a purified heart. Understand? My loyalty is to Allah alone, not to no human being. To Allah and His Messenger. To the Quran. Understand? The truth. All that is good. I want to live in a way that benefits me in this world through my death and beyond. Allah said, there is His portion, there is my portion in this world for me to claim a life-day boon. And Allah says, there is even better for me and the hereafter is forever. I want His good in this world and the world beyond. I'm going to behave in a way of receiving guidance. I'm going to learn, grow and develop. I am going to proceed so as to succeed in this world. I want to fulfill the purpose I'm here. The Quran guides us to our purpose, to awaken from the trances, to stop worshipping Satan, to draw closer to Allah, to experience the truth, to feel more secure, to live with Iman, Amal and a life tayyibun. So who will decide to get onto that path? Not the one who gets aggressive and is into aggression, not the one who is like into frustration. You see, the people who are championing their darkness, they'll end up very desperate in this world through their death and beyond, because they don't know Allah is supportive and they're not working with the support of Allah, and they're not progressing spiritually and otherwise. And there are people who they're not aggressive, but they're very defensive. They don't want to learn, but they won't learn. They won't get angry and aggressive, but they don't want to learn. Whatever. They end up frustrated in life. But there is the other type of person who says, we hear and we obey. That this is guidance. What is the guidance? The guidance is to admit that we are in error. The guidance is to be grateful that Allah is merciful and Allah is the guide. And the guidance is that we can claim refuge with Allah from Satan, their curse. We can be among those people who say we want to be winners in this world through our death and beyond. We can be among those people who strive to Allah. You get what I mean? We can say that there's two paths. One is the path of the believer, where things get better and better for them, and the other is the path of the mushrik and the kafir and the kafir, the mushrik, and those who appear to be religious but are falsely spiritual. You get what I mean? We are on the path. We want to be on which path? The straight path. You must have it in your heart. You must admit the truth about yourself, that you're ignorant, superstitious and arrogant. You must be admitting that Allah is merciful. And the Quran says those who fail to recognize the mercy of Allah, Satan is attached to them. See, if you think you got it all together, you're so smart, but you don't realize you're so in error, you will never have Allah guiding you to show you the error of your ways. You will never correct. You'll be thinking, I got my hat on my head, I got my beard on my face, I'm going to the mosque 5 times a day, I stand in prayer, I'm reading the Quran but I don't understand a word, I lack the smallest of kindnesses in my heart while I stand, whatever. I don't really know God. I've got all this appearance of a Muslim, but in the heart is a disease. Don't say you're a believer for faith has not entered into your heart. I'm interested in living and dying as a believer, being raised up as a believer. I'm interested in Allah's guidance, and that comes from me. I'm not asking you to turn to me or to anybody else. I'm asking you to admit the truth about yourself and turn to Allah. You understand that if you say I'm in error, I don't want to live in error. I want to live enlightened. I want to live aware. I want to live humble. I want to live grateful, thankful. I want to live with a heart that is purified. I want to bring to you a purified. If you say that to Allah, He will respond to you, not me or anybody else. You get what I mean? So, it's up to you. When guidance comes to you and shows you that you're in error, will you admit that you're in error? And will you turn to Him and say, thank you for being repentant. We are in error. There is diseases in our hearts. We want to be among those whose hearts are cleansed and healed. We don't want to live with a diseased heart. Guide us to that. I choose to be a person on the path of the believer's refuge. I choose to claim refuge with Allah from Satan the accursed. I don't want to worship Satan. I don't want to be among the people that live in denial of you, Allah. I want to be aware of you and draw closer to you. I want to take steps every day and watch you take tens of steps every day towards me. I want to draw closer and closer to you. I want to experience that assurance in my heart. It must come from you. You see? But if people want to remain deniers, want to remain associators, if they want to remain hypocrites, they won't do this. That disease will remain. It will be expanded and they will be astray. And who Allah leaves to stray, the Quran says, none can guide aright. But who Allah guides, none can lead astray. Shukr to Allah. All praise, glory and thanks is due to Allah Almighty. His choicest blessings upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shukr to Allah.